Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of A Modern Nonprofit Podcast. My name is Tasha Anderson, and I am here today with my friend Krista Kleiner. Really excited to have this conversation, Krista, because you come from such an interesting background and you have so many things that I think you could talk about and you can share from your own personal story, the nonprofit that you were a founder of, as well as just how you've been successful in your own right and the different ways of your business. So, Krista, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tasha. I'm such a fan of how you've turned your work into a way of connecting and giving back. And obviously, your background allows us to have a different type of conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm not like most accountants. I like to have conversations with people that aren't financial. And usually, as financial people, like to congregate with other people that are financial and have really nerdy number conversations. But I'm actually, a funniest story, confession of mine, that although I'm an accounting major and obviously work in financial services, my real passion and love is kind of marketing, branding, and kind of the psychology around what makes people interested in what you're doing and what you're selling and how we can almost entertain people and how we can get their attention to bigger causes, Krista. And that's one of the things that I found really interesting about you. So I'm not going to spill it for you. I'm going to let you tell your own story, but I want to hear a little bit more about how you came up with your organization, the One Heart Movement, and how that got introduced to the world. So please share.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're mentioning my background earlier, which is primarily entertainment, media, a bit of writing as well, TV hosting. And I found that I was being approached to be a spokesperson or an ambassador for a lot of brands and nonprofits and causes. And I was really happy to do so. I think philanthropy, humanitarian work has really been ingrained in me since I was young. My mother took me to the Philippines, where she's from, when I was 6. And when I saw the poverty and I went to children's hospitals, I was so moved. And I've always wanted to find a way to give back. And so I found a lot of joy in lending my voice to other causes over the years, but it was during COVID that I was moved in a very deep and different way. I was seeing the impact on nurses and in particular Filipino nurses, Filipino American nurses. And I said, well, wow, like this is my background. These are my, my people. And so I started digging and digging and realizing the impact on not just Filipino American nurses, but all nurses around the world that COVID had. And I felt compelled to do something. And I know I'm not the only one that this time of COVID, of, being locked down and having life really changed on all of us, as created the opportunity in the room for us to kind of look at ourselves and our lives and the world in a different way. And so, like many others, I started digging deeper, and I started to ask myself, what can I do to help? How can I make a positive impact to help others? And so what started off as a care for nurses really began like this journey of creating awareness on the many different issues that our world, our society is facing. And so I began reaching out to a lot of incredible people in my life to run ideas by them, get their thoughts. I started making PowerPoint decks of my research. I was such a nerd. I think at one point my longest deck was 70 pages of just all these ideas. But I was really lucky to get the support of other people who wanted to do good as well. And so what happened was, initially I was wanting to do some sort of fundraising event that would go under another nonprofit that I'm an ambassador for. But I was told by a lawyer and a friend who's now a board member and our lead donor, that the idea that I had was really its own nonprofit, and that I should just start my own. And within 1 minute of the lawyer advising this and my friend on the board agreeing that we should do this, I found myself accidentally almost starting this nonprofit. And I'm so grateful that I got that support. But our mission is to foster unity and well-being through the power of community love. And I felt that I wanted to do something that would foster that, because it could lend itself to be a solution to many different problems and issues, challenges that we have along the way.
I love that. What an interesting story. So you had mentioned kind of reaching out to your network and having the conversation. So in your mind, or especially in your experience, why is networking so important in increasing the growth and awareness of nonprofits? I mean, yours just so happened to create a nonprofit, but even taking that from like creation now to actually running the organization, what would you say networking has done for you? Or why is that important to other organizations?
Networking, or another way to say it, I like to see it beyond networking, is having a really tight group of supporters who you can count on to give you fair feedback, who believe and trust in you enough to connect you with other people. You know, there's different layers and depth, and so sure, it's easy to go around and network and meet people, but who's really going to go out on a limb for you? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And to me, you can't really expect that from people if you don't create a deeper connection with them. And so beyond networking, I think that creating really deep relationships has been meant everything to me. I mean, I tell people all the time, the success that we've had in such a short amount of time is really a reflection of the wonderful people I have around me. It's not easy to start a company. You know, life in general is not easy, right? But to take on an extra feat of starting a company, it can be really overwhelming. And if I didn't have the support system that I do, which started from networking, there's no way that I would have been able to start this company and grow it. And so that's one of the things that I emphasize to people the most.
You know, it's so funny to me how, you know, you had mentioned that you reached out to people and kind of initiated those conversations. And I have people reach out to me occasionally and ask me to help with a project or to speak on behalf or be an ambassador for. And it's really kind of flattering for me. And in many cases, I say yes, right? And I know that you've been approached, like you were saying, that you've been approached to speak on behalf of nonprofits or specific causes, and you've certainly agreed to do that. So, which kind of leads me to the next question. And I think people have this uncertainty or this lack of confidence or unwillingness to ask people, especially influencers or other people that have pretty significant like public, they're just big public figures. They're afraid to reach out to them and to ask them for support, especially and including on social media. So what would you say to that? I mean, have you seen some of your colleagues or your friends or people within your circle, are they willing to, speak up on behalf of these causes? And should we be afraid to ask people?
No, I mean, I can understand that it can be intimidating for sure, especially because you don't know this person, you don't have the energy in the room to work off of, but we never know unless we try, right? And so for me, I find it much easier to reach out to people when having a really good cause, because it's not this like, hey, support me with my me project. It's, hey, here's something that matters in the world. Here's why, here's other things that, can validate that. And here's an opportunity for you to make a difference and also show your following that you care and that you have a heart and that you're doing good things in the world, which I think is also very important for influencers, right? Is to show that side of them. So I think so much of it is how we frame it in our own minds. And if we can realize that we're actually giving them a value proposition for them that can work both ways, then I think it helps balance out the playing field. And it's on us who is approaching to see if it will resonate with that person. I believe in doing our homework, right? See, does this person care about children or the environment or what matters to them, or asking them, and giving them different options, like almost like a menu, like, hey, we're doing it, these two things, what resonates with you? And then saying that we're happy to create a campaign for you and give you materials to make it easy and give you the messaging, just make their life as simple as possible. I find that these are things that have helped us.
Good. So now I have to ask you the loaded question. How would someone even get in touch with someone that they might consider an influencer? Do these influencers actually check their own Instagram? Like, DMs? Like, are they, how would you, if you say, okay, this is amazing, Krista, I have the perfect person. I have no idea how to get in touch with these people. Is there like a secret?
Well, I think it circles back to your first question on networking, right? So much of the success that I've had comes through personal connections, and someone making another connection, which has helped open doors. Because you're right, sometimes these people don't check email. So for the bigger relationships, they came from a referral. So for example, how we got to the D'Amelios, who are, one of the biggest social media families on the planet, is a friend who had been my mentor for years connected me with some a top person in the entertainment industry who ended up joining our board. And again, it's all about making impressions as well. That person connected us with the CEO of Triller. After that connection with the CEO of Triller, I had the opportunity to present our cause, and then he had the team join a call the next day, and then that team went out and shared it with all the influencers that they managed. So that was one approach, right, is working with the tech company and their team, because they have a way to reach influencers. Another way is, to work on getting verified on, for example, Instagram, right? That verification gives some credibility. So when you do reach out, it has a little bit more weight when you DM or when you comment. Sometimes people don't check DMs. So I recommend also commenting and letting them know that you reached out, or sending
tagging
an
them
email.
or something.
Yeah, commenting on their posts so that they could see. Sometimes they check. There's so many different ways, right? But I say try it all, right? DM them, comment on posts. And then if they have an email attached to their social media, email them, link them, like whatever way you can, their website, because you never know what will get their attention or what they'll check. So it's really so much a game of persistence, right? Is don't give up, don't get disheartened, but just keep trying. And then see if anyone in your network knows that person and can connect. There's also things on Instagram that I think it's less known, but verified groups. So once you are a verified group, you can get invited into one of these chat groups, and that's helped a lot too.
Oh, that's interesting. Who knew? So you gave us lots of tips, but are there any other tips that a nonprofit can build their online presence in general, not necessarily targeting influencers to get them to support their cause or to bring awareness to their cause, but what other ways can they build just a social media presence in general?
Oh, absolutely. So that's really what we focused on when we launched, because we realized that when people go online and look at an account on social media, they use it as a tool to see if this group or this person is credible. And so since we were brand new, we launched with a social media campaign, and we launched with a challenge. And I think that's a really interesting idea of not only how to create a presence quickly, but to also create engagement. It wasn't us just posting static pictures, it was hey, we're kicking off this challenge and we want you to show your heart, and we want it in a way that we connect with people around the world. We made it exciting. So we had a whole campaign around it. One of the things I love when I look at the One Heart Movement's page is seeing so many different types of people, so many different types of people from all over the world. And so instead of posting our own content, which we did a little bit of initially just to give instructions, but we made it a community platform. So we were all about showing other people. And I think that helped a lot in getting engagement, people to participate, people to follow, was that not only were we asking them to do something, that we were going to highlight them and we were going to show them to our community. And also the tone of our page was really important. And we were mindful of that. During COVID, there's a lot of bad press and like heavy things in our world. So we said, well, what can we give that's positive and bright? And so we were really mindful of setting a tone that we would personally want to see, because it's so happy and uplifting and positive.
Love that.
And so all of this, I think, is important to think about.
Great tips. And I think sometimes social media seems like an afterthought for many organizations. It's just like one more thing. And I can't tell you, I was talking with a couple different CEOs and like, well, social media doesn't actually, drive donations. Well, we don't actually make any money doing that. And I just thought I actually have some really successful clients that use fundraising through social media as their main source of revenue. So I really challenge anybody listening to this that it absolutely does not have to be an afterthought. It shouldn't be an afterthought. To your point, your whole launch, all of this, press that you're getting, all of the engagement, awareness about what you're trying to do, and donations that came in because of, a really well thought out social media campaign. I have we work with really small organizations, we work with larger organizations, and it's really those small organizations that it's usually one person split 5 different ways with many, many different jobs. And one of them might just happen to be, well, post randomly, once a month on social media just to keep it like alive in some way. How do you, what advice would you give to these people on how to increase their user engagement on social media? If they just have not had any people that are liking their page or engaging with their page, any tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, what I was saying earlier, I think still applies, right? Creating some sort of challenge to motivate people to do things, letting them
something interactive.
Yeah, something that's interactive, and also showing that you will share other people's. So because people want to be shared on social media oftentimes, right? So those are good things to start off, actually engaging with people. So when you do get comments, write back to them, like their comment and write back, ask them a question. Also commenting on your followers' posts as well, right? Like it's a two-way street. So it's hard to expect a lot of people to take the time to comment on your page if you're not doing it for them. And so I think it's good to lead, right? Lead with love, lead with the, and show people that you care. And oftentimes people like to reciprocate. So I think that's really important. Using hashtags as well is helpful just to get new eyeballs of people who are interested in the subject that you're posting about. And another way too is because it's really complicated. And I speak to Instagram because that's what I'm most familiar with. The algorithms are changing all the time. So with how many people are posting on wall posts, it's easy for them to disappear. So what I do is once I have a wall post up, I wait a number of hours. Maybe if I did an afternoon, I'll wait till the evening to just get a different set of people who are checking it. And I'll share that post onto a story on the IG story, because sometimes people check the IG stories and then I'll be able to use a GIF or something and say new post and like put a link to the post to direct them to the wall post in case they missed it on their feed. So these are all little tricks that help.
And they all add up, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So for example, I have a client who, because of COVID, many organizations shifted to online platforms for their events. They did kind of virtual events through Facebook Live and had a bunch of buzz and a campaign. And that was a one-time thing. It was wildly successful. We had never done it before. And then as soon as that's over, it was like crickets. Like we had all this momentum and we lost it, right? And I'm worried with COVID, we were all forced to be really creative and we all went to digital spaces and we posted a bunch of things. And as the world seemingly, it will someday return back to some sense of normalcy, I'm afraid that some of that digital presence is going to be lost or that momentum is going to be lost. So you had a really big event and you were successful. What would you say about keeping the momentum going, or how do you keep the momentum going after you have a really big win, or circumstances like in the case of the one example I gave kind of forced us to think outside the box and use social media, but we've kind of just fallen asleep now?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a big believer of not getting too comfortable. Like I'd be thinking of what's coming next ahead of time, be planning ahead to keep the momentum going. And so for us, we knew that this was just one step, a stepping stone, and to create the awareness, to gain the following, to get the engagement, to have the credibility, but to do what, and so we knew that it wasn't just about having a big following or big social presence. It was about creating impact. And so already I was in discussions with people of different ideas that we could do, and things are bound to not work out, especially with how weird things are with COVID restrictions. But we had multiple ideas. And so I think that's really important, so you don't get stuck in any rut. And so we had a new initiative, an initiative to plant trees on behalf of every life lost to COVID. And so that gave us something to talk about, press releases. And so I think, having new topics to share with your audience is important. And that could be new initiatives, or it could be articles and people talking about it. It could be interviews. Just keep it interesting. And that's, I think, a challenge that we all face with our own individual profiles or presence and with the companies. But, by doing interesting things, it allows us more opportunity to share interesting things. So I like to begin with that, like, start with the base, and then you can create creative content out of that.
Absolutely. And it almost kind of holds us accountable, right? I have social media platforms, and I have to force myself, Tasha, you must do something interesting or come across something interesting, and be intentional about sharing those interesting things with the people that follow you. So not necessarily me creating it, but me sharing it, or as I come across it, just be really intentional about collecting it all up and kind of reposting that for others to see. So I think this has all been exceptionally helpful. As I mentioned, I'm actually a CPA by training, but I'm kind of a, marketing, social media junkie myself, although I'm not as active certainly as most people are. But I really love how much it can bring people together. It can bring people to your cause. And especially in the nonprofit space, what better way to bring awareness to our cause than using these platforms where so many people are on anyways. So thank you for all of your words of wisdom, Krista. This has been really informative for me, and hopefully really helpful for the nonprofits that listen.
Oh, thank you. You have an awesome mixture of your interests, and if we can make giving back and doing good fun and exciting, we'll get more people to join. So let's keep that in mind. And thank you for making this conversation fun.
Good. So Krista, if people wanted to find you, certainly on Instagram, anybody can find Krista on Instagram. But if you wanted to hear more about Krista's organization and follow her journey and see what she's doing, I guess, Krista, the easiest way would just be going to your website at theoneheartmovement.org. Is that the best way? And then is there any other ways that people can follow you and see what you're up to?
Yeah, for sure. My personal Instagram is Krista, Krista _Kleiner, Kleiner. So I post a lot of things there. And we have our at the One Heart Movement. And yeah, that would be the best way to keep in touch, keep up to date with what we're up to. And of course, reach out to me through either of those.
Perfect. Well, we'll put those in the show notes for anybody that wants to take a peek at what Krista's doing. And Krista, thank you again so much for joining us. Until next time.